Hey there folks, and welcome back to another one of my random Let's Talk About videos where I discuss and kind of sort of review other games. Today we're going to talk about Superfuse. It's a comic book themed sci-fi action RPG published by Raw Fury. Superfuse came out in early access on January 31st, so it's still very new, but it's honestly showing a lot of promise. The art style with the heavy blacks reminds me a lot of Borderlands, and the sci-fi setting is definitely emphasizing on that a bit, but it is nice and I do like it, especially in an ARPG format, which I don't think we've seen before. Superfuse also has full voice acting even this early on in early access, which is always appreciated. Anything is better than just the beeps from pushing next in a chat dialogue, Pokemon. The intro cutscene, which is obviously played out very much like a comic book, was really cool, and I hope that as the game gets bigger and more acts are added to it, that we get some more of these comic strip cutscenes, because it is very unique and would help refocus that theme every now and then. Because I was expecting the attacks and stuff to have like pop-ups of blammo and kerpow messages, that's not there, but since it's not there, there's also not much that keeps the whole comic theme going, and I've said comic theme a lot, so I'll move on. The gameplay is pretty typical of an ARPG. You got your standard enemies, rare mobs, elites, which get more properties, and some bosses here and there. So there's not much reinventing of the wheel as far as like gameplay department, but that's not always needed so long as you do the core functionality right. And while I'd like to say that yeah, Superfuse definitely has, I think I'll wait and reserve judgment for further down the early access timeline. Like I said, it's got a good foundation, but Superfuse does need some more work. The gameplay is functional, but there's kind of too many bugs here and there to make it really enjoyable. A lot of monsters getting stuck in the environment, the UI not updating properly, skills getting messed up when you add fuses to them. It's all kind of clunky, which is to be expected. I'm not mad or anything, it's early access, I'm just saying it's far from perfect. Now what brought me to Superfuse to begin with was the skill system, which kind of reminds me of Last Epic. Each class, which there are 3 of now, Berserker, Elementalist, and Technomancer, each have 2 skill trees that you can divide skill points across and then play them in different ways. And then each of the skill you unlock and beef up can be further augmented by their fuse system, which is like their whole game. Fuses are basically support gems like in Path of Exile. It's an augment to your skill so long as you meet the tag requirements. Like you can't put increased projectile speed on a melee skill, that just doesn't make sense, but you can add homing projectiles and forking projectiles to a projectile based skill. You gain fuse energy as you level up, so you can put more and more fuses into skills and make them more complex to a limit by this whole grid system that you kind of need to finagle. But this is like the entire core of the game. And I like games that give players a lot of customization for their character and kind of leave it up to them to figure out what to do and what's best for them. And Superfuse definitely does that. My only complaint right now with their fusing system is that a lot of fuses are for specific classes, and it really kind of limits what you can augment right now. Like, obviously that is going to change in the future. My main example of this was that as a minion character, I wanted to add poison to my minions because I found a fuse that gave a chance to poison on hit. Great, but it only applies to skills that do poison damage. Okay, makes sense, my minions don't do that. Well, there is a poison fuse that only increases poison damage if it already has poison on it. And I was like, okay, well I can't use that. And then there is the add poison damage fuse, but that's for Berserker only. So like I have 2 fuses that I want to use that would work, but to make them work, I have to be a different class and that kind of ruins the whole point, right? Again, stuff that could get changed in the future, but there was a lot of things I wanted to try but just couldn't due to class limitations, which felt really odd. The other part is about gear, and so far I haven't really seen any outrageously cool or unique stats on gear. For the most part, it's your typical life, defense, resistance, movement speed, damage kind of thing, but I have seen a lot of stats on normal gear that scales with character level, which I thought was really cool since that helps future-proof gear and just makes gear, better as you level up. There are also stats that gave more maximum summons, which I thought was awesome to see, but it didn't work, so it's kind of a letdown. Unique items that I found all felt kind of cookie cutter, not really unique. They just have normal stats on them, just kind of high amounts, which I thought was another shame. I never found anything that I thought I should build around or would augment my gameplay in any way, which I feel is super important for an ARPG, at least in my opinion. Again, early access, I know things are going to get added, changed, whatever. I just kind of got to talk about what I've experienced so far. There's no point in speculating on what could be. So speaking about my experiences, I really did enjoy playing Superfuse a lot. I think I dumped 5 or 6 hours into it on one play session, and that was enough to get me through all the story content in this early access stage, which isn't too bad to be honest. But by the time it was done, I was at a point where my build just did too much for the game to keep up. I just shot too many projectiles, and the game just ended up lagging and taking forever to keep up. And this isn't a projectile issue, it appears to be just any class that puts a lot of fuses into a single skill. It just adds a lot of calculation work that needs to be done, it's exponential even, and the game just can't seem to keep up. And I wish that I could get that fixed ASAP, because the entire game is about these fuses, and if the system starts to collapse as you put more and more in, well, I mean, like, that's the whole game. I feel like that should be priority number one to fix. I mean, how could that still be an issue? Overall though, like, I feel like I've talked about a lot of negatives about the game, but I do really like the principle of it. I've played a lot of ARPGs out there since alpha and beta, like Poe and Wolcen, Grim Dawn, Last Epic, Diablo 3 even. And so I feel comfortable saying, like, yeah, this can be good, like, it just needs love. And I wouldn't really recommend picking it up right now because the content is fairly lacking, but keep an eye on it, check for updates, because I said the devs are putting in work, they're listening to feedback, they're making roadmaps based upon player suggestions, they're pumping out updates. Even today, the day after launch, they put out like 2 updates. They're just trying to fix issues and give players a good experience. And I hope that keeps up, because this could be a great game in no time with that kind of attitude by the devs, and it's really good to see. But that's going to be all for me. Thank you all for watching, hope you guys like Superfuse, and good luck out there.